Hello everyone, this is Sieg777 and welcome back to Ars Nouveau. Now, last episode we made ourselves an extremely useless wither farm. So we now have a repo full of nether stars that we honestly don't need. Today, I'm going to work on some equally as useless. But first, we need to address something. We had another chunk regenerate here. It was this chunk last time, the one I'm currently standing in, but this chunk, it just decided one day, I'd been out for a while, went on vacation, got sick, logged back in, and we've got a hole in the side of our base, which is, it's less than ideal. Yeah, that's a thing. We can easily get in and out though, so for now I'm just going to leave it. It mostly just kind of messes up screenshots from right here. But actually right here is where we're going to be working today anyway, so we'll just kind of fix that off camera or something. Honestly, I'm basically at post scarcity for resources anyway, so it's not like it's going to be expensive to fix this. It's just going to be kind of time consuming, but luckily with effortless building, it will be hopefully less work. The bigger trouble is just going to be doing the copper because I have to do it in a certain pattern. Anyway, today we're going to be working on something equally useless like I mentioned, and that is a crane. Now, as I mentioned, I got sick, had COVID go through our family again, which is always fun, and I've basically had a lingering cough for the last month or so. So that is fun, and hopefully I don't have too many cuts here when I start coughing my lungs out. Anyway, today I'm working on this crane. As you can see here, we've got a bit of redstone in the back, and basically that's about it. I want to kind of go over what this is doing. Basically, the idea is I'll press a button, or I'll probably be on a timer, and what it'll do is it will rotate this crane. So the whole thing is going to be a create contraption, and it's going to rotate between that point over there and this point over here. That's the plan, at least. Right now, I don't have any of the infrastructure in place for that. None of this is glued together. It's literally just a redstone setup. We can kind of demonstrate what it does, though. In the words of every redstoner ever, it's really quite simple what's going on here, and so I'll break it down into kind of the modules of what's going on. First up, this observer. This observer is currently watching this trapdoor, which means it's basically watching nothing, but what I noticed is that observers will blink when they start up, or when they go back solid from being a create contraption. So I've got a little setup here, for example. This observer, it blinks at the end of each cycle, so I'll get to that in a second. Basically that just starts off this circuit. So observer, powers block underneath it, redstone with 2 ticks of delay is enough to then update this redstone torch, which then updates the sticky piston. Let's go ahead and run that real quick. As that goes, it just starts a simple etho hopper clock here with a stack and a half of iron nuggets. It just kind of cycles back and forth. Basically it just drains this one, which all that really does is it switched the direction of this little gear shift here. All that does is then make it go all the way up. It'll sit up there for a little while, and then it'll go once the hopper clock is done on this side here. So we're about 2/3 of the way done. I wanted to take a little while to do this. The block just kind of blends in up there because it's just an archwood plank. Just temporary blocks for right now. I haven't decided on what I want for colors. But once that clock is done, it then switches the direction and goes back down. Unfortunately, as much fun as create is, it is kind of visually buggy here. You can't actually see the rope, which is kind of ruining the effect I was going for. But I'm going to continue with this anyway. I wanted it to be really slow. The idea is this is just a cargo crane unloading from a ship that I still need to build, offloading it to the docks here. It's actually kind of backwards right now, I should mention. It'll go all the way up, and then it will rotate to this direction, and then once it gets there, it will drop it down, because that will have triggered the observer. It'll drop it down, sit there for a bit, bring it back up, and then cycle back to over here. So basically all this circuit does is, timer is right here. This tells it how long it should be running in reverse for, and this circuit right here, these 2 comparators in subtraction mode, basically say, it basically checks to see whether either side is powered or not. It's a XOR gate. What that means is, if you've ever had like a room in your house where you have 2 different light switches that both power the same light itself, where you have one on or off, and the other one will toggle it on or off depending on what you do. So if you turn this one on, now your light's on. You can still turn it off by flipping this switch, even though now you're flipping the switch on. It kind of how it works, but basically all that means is while the clock is running, it'll run in reverse, and then once it is done, it will flip it back around again. And I needed to have this whole circuit because apparently, from my testing with this setup here, apparently the direction of this pulley switches depending on whether it is facing east-west or north-south. So that's a fun thing that I had to design around, but basically it means I just need some more redstone. And then our circuit over here, actually let's sleep real quick because it's a little dark. We don't have to worry about monsters. I have mega torches all over the place here, but that is more just for visibility than anything else. This design right here, everything up here, all this wood, is just kind of an example of that structure. So we're just going to ignore all of that for now. Down here is the main circuit. What it is basically, when I press this button, it will flip the direction of this gear shift as well as unlock the clutch, which will then allow it to rotate. Just kind of a whole bunch of circuit here so that when I press the button, it'll rotate back and forth. And once it gets there, it completes the circuit with that, which allows this to then stop the clutch and turn this back into solid blocks. It has to be solid blocks so that the crane will be able to actually move. And then once after a timer goes off, we just pulse it again, does the same thing, pulls that up, and rotates it along. Once it gets there, it completes the circuit, which is then enough to stop the clutch again. And each time we press this, circuit right here basically just toggles on and off the gear shift to flip it back and forth. It's a pretty simple-ish design. And then this thing here, I have two different places here so that it knows which direction it is, because again, the redstone required it to flip back and forth depending on north, south, east, west sort of thing. So with that being said, next up over here, now that I've got most of the main redstone in place, because redstone on camera is always fun, I need to basically build this design underneath here. This is just going to be the base of our crane. It won't be moving, just the top part will. I think it's pretty straightforward. I've got my two contacts here. The actual placement of those isn't as important. Over here I have them next to each other. Over there I'll just be off by one. That's fine because none of those actually matter too much anyway. This one right here powers... Do I remember where I put that block? One of these needs to be affecting blocks up above it. And I can't remember which one it is. Oh, it'd be powering this one right here. So that'll power that, I guess. I might need to bump that out by a block now that I look at that. Maybe. I don't know. I have a picture of the actual circuit somewhere. So I will go ahead and start work on, I guess the next step is to glue this together and then add the base to the whole structure. Still need to figure out a timer on this too. Right, I totally forgot how this actually remembers which direction it's facing, and that is because of this one right here. This contact turns on and off this torch, which turns on and off the target block, which powers this direction on this side here. So I don't need to worry about basically this redstone contact right here serves no purpose for the circuitry up top here. I do need to make sure that this is not going to be an issue. That might be a problem. I can just replace this one with a slab if that's a problem or not, but basically I just need to worry about this guy right here is the one that's going to determine which direction it's facing. So that's the equivalent of, I guess, this one right here, which is powering this redstone dust. Just an example. So let's go ahead and figure out where we want to put things. Oh, one thing I should mention. We recently installed fairy lights, which are a pretty cool mod. It allows you to do decorations like this. It's just really fun to play with. The blank ones like this, I think they can only be white, but what this is it is a letter bunting. Can I right click it on this side maybe? Do I have to shift right click? Connection fastener. Wire, there we go. So basically what we can do is, if I click so it can let me type, hello. Apparently I have caps lock on. It'll have the letters hang down from it, but if you replace that instead with simply a blank space, so this block right here, let's click, right here is just an empty space. then that allows it to be just blank. So it allows you to do things like these structural supports. So it looks like the pylons here are tied off to over here. Unfortunately, with my testing that I've done with Create stuff, as awesome as it would look to be able to have some sort of support here, we're not going to be able to do it. Once it turns into a contraption and it's an entity at that point, the connectors here just kind of give up. Even if they're glued on, I haven't been able to get them to stay glued on once it starts rotating. So as much as I would love to have that in the final design, it looks like that's probably not going to be working properly. And we are back. We have a base kind of in place. I say kind of because it had to change it a little bit from our design over here. Two main ways I had to change it was I rotated it because in that design I kind of implied for the front of it to be this direction. So basically the direction that the redstone contacts are in, but over here it's actually flipped where the contacts are on the back of it. Basically, that's how it's going to be facing. It's going to rotate to over here and back. So we have ourselves roughly what I want. I say roughly. I still need to actually figure out the design for this whole structure here. The redstone is basically going to be hidden. I'm going to have like a kind of a big box over it and maybe a big gear out the side or something. As well as I mentioned, I don't really know what I want for the actual materials for this. But for right now, I'm just going to glue it together and see if it works or not. Let's kind of go like that. Selected blocks must be connected. Right. So that kind of makes sense. This block, for instance, this redstone contact is not actually connected to anything. It's touching the torch, but the torch is not actually touching the sides here. So effectively, this is just kind of diagonal and therefore not connected at all. We're going to connect it. There we go. That should connect that. That is solid through there. I had kind of gone through and cleared out blocks I didn't think I needed, but for instance, I think this may not be considered touching. No, it should be. Let's see. This sticky piston, you are probably not touching either. So it looks like we're going to have to maybe just kind of box the whole thing in. Again, archwood planks are all temporary here. I'll have this be some other block, but I don't know what yet. For right now, like I said, I just want to see if this works at all. In theory, it should, but I haven't tried building this. You know, let's break you. You're no longer connected. Did I pick that up? Yeah. Okay, so I think everything should be considered connected at this point. So we're going to connect from you. Must be connected. Really? What is it thinking is not connected? If I go from you, that's connected. You are not connected. I apparently need a block right here. Because then that connects to this one. Even though this was connecting... Oh, because I was doing it in sections, so whatever, that's fine. So we're just going to do it one section at a time, I think, is going to be probably the best way of doing this. Can I connect from you to over here? Yeah, that works. And what about you to over here? Okay. I think that's working. It's really hard to tell what's connected or not here. I think that this is all considered connected because the bounding box is outside all of it. And this will be easier once I have a full box on it because then I can just encase the whole thing. But I think that'll work for now. Now, if I do from you, can I grab this whole thing? I don't actually need this crank here or that extra gear or that extra shaft. In fact, we'll just break you, break the shaft as well. That appears to have everything. It does not have that, but that is fine. So, I think what I need to do is I need to reverse this first off. And I'm trying to think of the best way to do that. Right now it is basically backwards from what I want it to be because I want the baseline state, the idle state, for that to be pulled up all the way. Because I want it basically, it's going to be up. It has to be up when it's rotating. And then once it gets to where it's going, then it drops down, hangs out for a bit, and then goes back up. So I need to invert this whole thing. And this torch right here is basically what's doing that. Because this is what's powered, which then turns off the torch so it knows which direction to go. And I'm not sure a nice way of doing that that's not just kind of like brute force redstone here. Because obviously I can't just like break this and replace it with a solid block because then it's not going to be powering the target block. If the target block's not powered, then this whole thing doesn't work. If I remove the target block and I have you be redstone, that will be powered on because this will connect down and that will connect down, and since that's still powered, that may work. Let's try that. If I break you and replace you with just a redstone dot, that flips that around and that goes back up. Okay, I think that works. I may need to make sure you're glued still. Are you glued? Glue. Maybe that'll work. That's all the way up. That's still in the kind of off mode there. I think everything's glued. I think everything is good. This redstone torch is not glued. Hey. Glue. I think that's everything. Let's find out. It may or may not work. It may break horribly. Let's find out. I think now that that's all the way up, we, in theory, should be able to press this button and it will start everything rotating. And I'm pretty sure I got the circuit down here built. Let's find out. It's probably going to rotate the wrong direction, won't it? This is a clutch. Clutch by default doesn't change direction. A gear shift by default, I think it passes the same rotation through, which is rotating that direction. But when I press the button, it's going to flip it, power that on, and it should rotate the right way. Let's find out. Press the button. And nothing works. Okay, cool. Why does nothing work? Because that is too long to... Oh. Because this lever right here is blocking the whole thing from turning off. Okay, so that is off right now. I think we're good. Press the button. And it rotates. And it rotates. Okay, the pistons. Why are you not? Excuse me. You should have stopped. Why didn't you stop? Okay, you gonna stop here? You should turn on. You did turn on. You did not power anything. Why did you not power anything? Hello? Oh, this is a quasi-connectivity issue, isn't it? I stick redstone on that. Is that gonna... It's powering it diagonally from above. I want it to power the block next to it. Yeah, okay. So by having a redstone line here, this isn't actually what's powering it. This is, but this redstone line, well, I guess it is technically powering it. This redstone here is forcing an update on this because while it was getting powered from above, so it didn't know it was getting powered. Quasi-connectivity is weird. All that to say, I think that should have fixed it. And if I press it now, that is, of course, not going to do what I want because now it's going to rotate the opposite direction and I don't want it to. So we're going to fix that by sticking our lever back on here. Pressing our button here. Flips that around. Oh yeah, that did work, by the way. Oh, yes. While we were at it, you... Oh, was it not... I wonder if this circuit simply can't work. That would be a shame, because I needed a hopper clock. I guess I could do a clock with, like, redstone components. But that's going to be difficult. Let's see if this works. Right. Cycle you again. Turn you off. Now let's see if it works. Rotates. Pistons still did not move. I'm wondering if that's because since it was sticking out. Note that it is going the right direction. It's staying up on default because this did not flip because I don't have my pistons in place. That is going to be a problem unless I were to do something like... I mean, I could just have pistons floating here, but that's kind of weird. I think because they are extended, and then the whole glue situation here, I'm curious actually, if I were to take a block here like that, can I glue those together and have, like, does that, okay, no, so that doesn't work, which is what I'd hope. I shouldn't have broken that one. Break this one. You go back in place. Break, break, break. I noticed the glue here. There's a lot of glue hanging out. I think what I need to do is to rotate you back. I think something with my glue may be wrong. Alright, so I've broken all my glue. I'm going to start from this corner here and see if it will let me connect everything. Let's put another block right here. This from you to you. Everything should be connected. That's all connected there. When I mouse over this, it did highlight this. So these should all be connected now. Why do you not move? Can you simply not move? Oh. Okay. Yes. If I recall correctly, regular pistons can't be moved by create. Totally forgot about that. Yeah, because I remember Hermitcraft guys were doing a create series, and Scar figured that out because he was using a bunch of pistons as decorative blocks, and they didn't stay with his giant train thing that he was building. So he ended up having to use a different block because regular pistons wouldn't move. Okay. I think we can work with that. If I do piston, there are mechanical pistons, which can be moved. That's a different thing. Sticky multi-piston. What are you? Extension length controlled by redstone signal strength. Well, I don't want that because it's going to be fully powered. I think I can work with this. So I guess what we need is we need something that can basically just replace this whole hopper clock design. The way this one works is with this signal, it turns off for a little bit. Basically whenever this ticks, this will turn off for just long enough for that to pulse back to over here, pull the redstone over, and start our timer. Timer is 96 items, 2.5 items per second, so somewhere in however many seconds it is. We just need, whenever we arrive, this observer is going to pulse, and it's worth noting this location is irrelevant. It can be moved anywhere. It just needs to exist. It's when it turns back solid that it pulses. Right now, that's powering this repeater, which is then turning off the torch just long enough for that to happen. So effectively, I just need when observer ticks, count however many seconds, and turn it on for that long, and then turn it off for that long. Now, admittedly, the turn off stage isn't actually that necessary. Well, it's not necessary to count, I should say. Basically, what it's going to be is that just flips this back the other direction, which is for pulling it back up, which obviously we need to wait that long, but we can kind of do that blind anyway, so I think we're fine. Thankfully, while Create is making it so that the sticky pistons here don't work, and therefore the whole hopper clock, we have a solution. This is a pulse extender. If I were to, let's replace you with an observer, which I probably have in my backpack. Observer, thank you. Let's grab a trapdoor while we're at it, because those are nice for triggering observers. If I place you right here, that's the wrong direction, of course. Let's place you right here. Cool. I thought that would have pulsed when I placed it. If we place this here, that triggers. Currently it's set for 10 seconds. I should have set it to 5. But basically, whenever it arrives, it's going to then have a 10-second signal, which honestly is exactly what I need. I don't need, so this observer, I'll move around. This repeater is really just pulling the signal out of this redstone block. And I didn't want interfering with the torch there. So really, I just need, when we arrive, observer takes a pulse extender for however many seconds we want. It'll then turn off at the end of that, and we just need to make sure that our timer for rotating back and forth is such that it'll account for however much off time we need. And I think, honestly, that's all we need. So, we're going to go ahead and break all of this. You are no longer necessary. Thank you for your services. Break this repeater. Break this torch. And also, let's break the observer while we're at it. Don't need any of this. So let's go ahead, patch this up so we have a working space here. This should all be glued because it's all within the box. Okay, we just need, when we arrive, observer needs to power our pulse extender. Let's empty our inventory here real quick. I don't need letter bunting. I don't need any more shafts. We don't need any deep slate. We can throw the slime in. Okay, over here, Mr. Pulse Extender, thank you. Grab you, and wherever you went, right there. You're gonna go here. Little arrow, its output's that direction. Hold right click, and it'll allow you to change. We're gonna go with 10 seconds. And we just need our observer. I'm gonna put it right here. And it will be facing into a block. Block gets powered, that'll work. And then what we can do is we will put this right here. That will then start the rotation for our 10 seconds. So currently that's dropping it down. We'll have to figure out the exact timing that we want on this. 10 seconds is probably, 10 seconds is definitely too short. So that will have to probably go to 20 seconds. Right now, I just want to see that this works at all though. Cool, so that went back up. I think now the idea is every few minutes we would pulse this. And that's just a regular timer. Why did you do that again? I already glued you once. Rotates around. After 10 seconds, that will then turn off. Cool, turns off. Flips that back around. Let's switch you back into position so we can re-glue that. There we go, all connected up. That drops down. I think it only makes it about halfway, that's fine. We'll fix the timing later. And I should point out, this is not serving any real purpose. This is literally just, why did all of that break? Odd. This is literally just for decoration. This is just gonna be in the background of my base. Where are you here? Okay, let's connect all that. Glue, you are that whole area. That is fine. If I glue from, let's give a block to right click on up here. We shall glue to you. So if I connect from you to you, that is all now nicely linked. Okay. So at this point, in theory, everything should be working exactly perfectly. Press the button, rotates our crane around. Interesting is that it's dropping already. Don't you know you should leave your load not moving while you're rotating? That's dangerous. Where's OSHA? So they'll go down for 10 seconds, start going back up. I do want it to be a lot longer because the idea is that it'll drop all the way down and hold there for a little bit because it's basically to simulate they're loading stuff onto it. I'll probably swap this out for like a barrel or something so it looks a little bit more like cargo being moved. And then once that goes all the way up, after a little bit, we will then trigger our button down here to rotate you back. And it left it all again. Why is glue so finicky? Rotate you back. It's probably going to break something. I think what we need to do is re-glue it once it's over here. Okay. From you to you. Okay. You go back up. Thank you. That is interesting. I'm going to have to do something about it trying to drop down while it's moving. Which makes sense. As soon as it starts moving, it rotates the direction again, so it starts dropping it. But that's a little weird. And again, we still need to figure out the actual decorations here. Now, this does greatly simplify our circuit. Because it's just trigger that. But I like it. That's, at least functionally, this is mostly working, except for the random glue dropping out sometimes. You were glued. You were glued. Why are you not glued now? Alright, I think I finally actually figured it out for real this time. So, the problem is, this connection up here kept breaking. Basically, then it would then disconnect from the whole bottom part here and nothing would stay together. But I think the problem was this block, the one that's being moved by the pulley, was getting disconnected. And since then it was breaking the glue connection, it just broke the entire glue connection. So now by having that, the bulk of the arm, as well as this top section here, all connected independently and not connected to our block, it seems to happily move back and forth. And without any breaking or anything, the only problem is, of course, this block, our cargo, is getting lost. That's a problem. You know what? Don't need it. This works. By simply not having this connected, like it's not glued to it, basically it still acts connected because it's still stuck to the pulley. So I just moved it back and forth without it being glued on, expecting it to be left behind. But it starts moving. It does drop down. I'll have to figure that out. Probably a clutch or something during motion. It gets here, finishes dropping down once it shows up again. Again, I really wish the visual bugs were fixed here because I think it'll look really cool once it does work. It kind of works. You can see that. But once it goes all the way back up at the end of... So it keeps going down while the timer is going. So again, need a longer timer there, but less time here means I can test it more. So it's not glued. That's still not glued to it. But it still works. And I think that's okay. I mean, okay, ideal world, I'd be able to have multiple blocks glued to the end of this, but I'm pretty sure that's not going to work. Well, I haven't tested it. Well, I tested it before and it didn't work, but maybe I can test it now. By not gluing it to the rest of the structure, in theory, that should all stay together. Unless it just breaks it because it pulls just the one block and leaves the rest of the structure. That's probably what will happen. But it's working. I've been able to move it back and forth a few times now without having to re-glue it in between. Basically, just as long as nothing is moving when I rotate it. Once it's there, it's not bound to anything. It just exists here as a block. The rest of this is all linked. And that all works. Obviously, it looks terrible because it's just a bunch of gray stuff here. I need to actually make it look like a real crane and then probably fight with glue a bunch more after that. But it is working. I am happy with this. This actually works. Okay, I have to test this. If I take this, just glue these two pieces together, they're independent. They're not connected to the rest of that. Does that pull the whole thing all at once? I'm curious. I don't know if it's going to work or not. I'm expecting it to not work. I'm expecting it to leave a block behind. Interesting. So it started moving the whole thing together. And I'm assuming this is currently not glued. See, the thing is, if I can get a clutch in here to pause it before moving, I think this will actually work. Because the problem is that it moves down, so it's lost the connection because it's already started moving during motion. And I think a clutch might fix this. Because now that's connected again here. If I were to drop it now, the two will move together. And the great thing about that is I can probably design an actual, like a cargo lift here, like a platform or something to put things on. And I think that should all work. But again, I need a clutch to pause this whole system basically once it arrives back. So I guess when this turns off and then after another 10 seconds, so probably another pulse extender so I can have the time for it coming back up. If I were to power a clutch down here at that point, when both timers, the downward and then the upward, if I put a clutch on at that point, this will stop moving. It will just hold everything in place. And that way, when it starts moving to the other direction, I think that'll work. That is actually leaving me a lot more hopeful than I had been. Alrighty, well, we've got quite a lot done. I think I'm happy with the bottom of the crane here. It's kind of big and bulky, which is what I wanted. It's a lot of copper, and I'm not entirely sure if I like that. I think like immersive engineering steel might look better, but we don't have that mod, so kind of irrelevant. So I think I'm happy with at least the bottom part here, and I am ready to glue this back together. I'm going to start down here, and I have a few blocks that I want to mention. So first off, if I have this go over here, everything is happy and green. Perfect. That's all glued together, and any blocks I place in that area are going to be considered glued as well. So like I could just add on this block right there. See the little glue particles. It's fine. It works. It's all glued together. But next up, I need to include the rest of the crane too. So these blocks here are temporary. They're just so I can get the whole area. I'm going to go from this bottom block up to this block here. Like that. So now, because these overlap right here, because this section and this section overlap, they're considered glued together. And similarly up here, since I'm gluing to this block right there, which of course means that they need to have an actual block here. I was thinking I was going to get rid of the archwood, but I think I need it. Maybe. So I think that should be good. For now, I'm just going to leave that copper there. Kind of ugly. We'll sort that out later. I want to see if this actually moves. So I've got everything hooked up. I did have to redesign some of the circuitry down here when I added this whole area here. Now, instead of that button that was pressing everything, I have this right here, redstone link. And if I look underneath here, it's also going to power this redstone wire, which goes down. That flips the gear shift back and forth. You can see the redstone block there. And the rest of this is powering this block. That block is then turning on or off this redstone torch, which is what's completing the circuit. So that's how that all works. Had a slight redesign there. Let's stop gliding, please. There we go. Now, with any luck, if I didn't break anything, which I probably did, let's see if this works. Almost. Yep, there we go. Okay. Took a little bit for the server to keep up. But that appears to be working. And then when it gets there, it should have stopped. You were supposed to stop over there. Are you going to stop? So when it gets over here, that will complete a circuit, which should power piston. Which did not power piston. Do I actually need that redstone on top of there? I want in there. Do I have... No, it's block prints now. Let's try to think if I can... You know, let's break you, break you. I think that does need a redstone dust. Let's grab that. Redstone. Apparently I am basically out of redstone. I'm actually going to do this one instead. Break you. Place that. Now when that lines up, that should emit a signal. I hear the piston. There we go. Okay. So apparently I do in fact need a redstone dust on there, and a simple slab does not work. So Mr. Redstone Contact here, it is powering all the blocks on all the sides of it here, as well as this block below it. So instead of relying on that one, which apparently did absolutely nothing because it's next to the piston and still did not trigger the piston. So quasi-connectivity is probably something to do in there. But for right now, let's see if that works. So it's now facing that way. You are moving. And the glue appears to not be working. Okay. We can work with that. Let's see if any glue broke here. You're fine. Is there a reason that didn't work? You should have been glued to the pulley. This worked last week. Okay, well, let's try this again. I'm going to hop down here, push R button again. That should now rotate the other direction. Cool, that circuit's working nicely. You should now go all the way up there. Ideally pause. Perfect. And it's lowering. Cool. The rope, kind of similar to the elevator over there. The rope is kind of deciding when it should or should not work. It would definitely look better if it was working. Not sure why it's not. Probably something with my computer. Not entirely sure. That will go down a little bit once the timer is done. That flips around. Pulls it back up. And once it's back up there, everything should be ready to go again. Now the question is, why did this not move? Because the pulley is clearly glued in here. Everything else appeared decided to move. But for some reason this did not. I wonder, actually, if it has to do with order of events. This is now glued first. Like that. And I wonder if that was why it worked. By gluing that afterwards, it now should work. Let's see if it works. Let's go over here. Land over here, push our button. And there's currently no pulley sitting here. Right? Everyone sees that? There is no pulley there. Gets over here. Enables the rotation. Perfect. I think this is working, and apparently the rope is working now too. Which is awesome. I like that. Can we go back up? Can we land here on our bridge? Perfect. Now, if I pull up this handy dandy linked controller, okay, rope stopped working. Once it gets all the way up to the top, it'll run for a few more seconds, I think. And let's see, do it Z. There we go. There we go. It stopped. Everything down there stopped. We're good. And if I activate this and press forward, okay, you're going the wrong way now. I didn't mean to press the direction, but that direction shouldn't do anything. Right click U to disable. We should be able to move. server's trying to keep up. I can hear my fans on my computer turning on. So that's fun. You are still trying to sort out what you're doing. Not quite sure. I wanted to land on that. Not really sure what it's doing. Alright, I think I know what's wrong here. It's not that we made a clock, technically. So we did make a clock, but that's not the problem. The problem here is when I use this handy dandy linked controller, instead of it being like a stone button press like over there, so when I press the button, it triggers this redstone link, sends a signal this way, turns off the torch, which is the same as pulling that up, which then turns the clutch back on, is basically how that works. Because when the clutch light is off is when it allows the signal to go through, or not signal, but the rotation. Basically, the problem here is the time that it takes me to press the button. It continues the signal as long as I am pressing the button, and it needs to be at least a stone button press. If I do like a real quick one, it will still trigger this guy here. So if I move back here, over here a little bit, where can I see? I'm going to switch. I hate playing with FOV like this, but this will allow us to see. There we go. So if I bring up our redstone here and I press forward, if I press the button, now it's happy, but it's turning the wrong direction. Basically, the problem is that each time I press that, no matter how short, it will still trigger this line down here. But if it's too short of a signal over here, it is going to just create that clock that we did. Now we are going to move out of this FOV because, there we go, gets dizzy. Now that should be lined up correctly over here, roughly. You are still moving, so we will wait until our signal is off to pull that back up. Did our pulley stayed over here? And apparently lost a block. That's odd. But once the signal turns off from our squirrel, eventually, there we go. Okay, now it's ready to go. So we're going to activate the button and we're going to press and hold for a little bit. There we go. So it just has to be a bit longer of a button press because too short, like I said, it will still trigger the reverse, like the reverse direction there, but it doesn't send enough signal to actually unlock the clutch to allow the thing to rotate. So just need to be wary of that when you're using these remotes here, that you are actually pressing it long enough to actually matter. Otherwise can cause problems. Why are you drilling a hole through? This is not your first time doing that either. New tunnel bore. Cool, that works, I guess. There's a block here. Oh, that's just the end of that. Okay. So, yeah, that's a thing. That should make it all the way back up still. Why do I even say these things? And of course, down here in the crane itself, we do have at least the makings of our cab. So we can sit here in our seat. We can put our controller right there. And now that that has stopped moving, we can right click it to activate. And now any of my button presses will just carry on over here. So I've got like space is up, shift is down, noting that that shift does not get me out of here. I have to actually specifically right click this, and then I can shift to get out of my seat. So that's a thing to remember with these. But it is kind of cool. You can have a little control panel. So if I press forward for long enough for that to matter, it will start rotating. And we are sitting here controlling our crane from the actual crane control. And ideally it should still stop. Cool, messed up our orientation, our looking there. It looks like that did join back together. Let's see, and this is not lit up, which means I should be able to hit shift safely. Cool. So that's working. Are you gonna go? Perfect, I stopped there instead of drilling another hole. Cool, that works. And that should then go all the way back up, and I think that's working. I still wanna work on the actual arm of the crane here, but it's kind of difficult to figure out how to do that. All the blocks have to be touching on one side, so like I can't do like diagonal of like just this. It has to have this little Z pattern because otherwise these are not considered touching and therefore the glue will not work. So glue is kind of a weird thing, even though it does show it as a full like bounding box around the whole structure, because that's how I set it up. It still does have to be physically connected. And I'll be honest, I don't know how the belts work on that. I'd imagine they're at least programmed to be able to work like this, because otherwise it wouldn't be working. But as far as like contact things, I'm not entirely sure if it's considering this as a block for this to be connected to, or what. I'm not sure. But I do know if I mess with it too much, then the glue just stops agreeing with me entirely, and then nothing works. So this has been a really fun project. I still want to decorate it more, like I said, but I'm really happy with the fact that it at least is functional. I do want to put a timer on this so that it can go every like 20 minutes or something, just kind of rotate back and forth. But at the moment, there's nothing for it to rotate to. I currently don't have a boat over here to be unloading, but I at least have a working crane that is able to have 2 degrees of freedom here. So like the rotation is one, and then the pulley is the other. I was debating if I could get another with moving the arm up and down, but I don't think that's going to work without breaking lots of things. So I'm really happy with this, and quite honestly, I was thinking about this when I was making this. This is a really unique setup that I haven't seen done before, but that I've always wondered if it was possible. With like the trains and stuff, on like a normal train track, you'd be able to have like a crane to be able to pick up a car and move it. Now granted, it'd have to be a massive crane to be able to do that, but like at least physically that does make sense to move object up from here and put it down over there. Like that's a thing that's done in the real world. And apparently it is possible to actually build that. So I'm really happy with the mechanics of how we got this to work. We are going to clean this up. You can go away. You are not part of the structure. I'm really happy with the mechanics. I'm not quite happy with the design yet, but I'm going to keep working on that here and there. I just wanted to get something out before we restart the server here. We are planning on resetting when we get to 1.21. There's still a hole over there. But that's going to probably be sometime in September. We're not entirely sure and still trying to get things stable. Currently, there's quite a lot of bugs with Ars Nouveau, as well as every other mod as well, because 1.21 is still pretty new. But we are excited to be able to play with the new things when we eventually get there. And for the moment, there's still lots of testing going on, so not quite stable enough to create an actual server. So we are going to stay here and keep building what we can in our base while we still have time. Anyway, this has been Zeke777, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.